Okay, we are going to start the public work session. Kevin and Beth, are you guys ready?
Okay, we're ready for this fun. I bet you, we'll see when I get into all those tiny numbers. Okay, so this evening, we're talking about ESSER, where we've kind of been, what the future might look like with this. I've got lots of slides in detail. Beth is here to answer questions, but I'm going to charge ahead in the interest of time. I'm going to talk about each of the 3 ESSER grants, 1, 2, and 3. 1 is fully spent out, as you can see on this slide. The size of it, the first grant that came out was $3,372,000. You can see the 3 categories there in the bullets that we spent those funds on, primarily salaries and benefits, also contracted services, and then tech equipment and supplies. Included in those totals above, ESSER 1 was required to have a non-pub component, just like Title I. Boys and Girls Club also was a component of that, is $200,000. We delayed spending because we were waiting on federal guidance. 2020 was just a chaotic year. And when this came out, we had a very short amount of time to try to build a budget. We were waiting to make sure that we didn't spend it on something that wouldn't be allowable, and then we'd have to repay and be on the hook. So ESSER 1 really got off to a slow start. Moving on to ESSER 2, you can see the grant size jumped dramatically. 11 million, almost $800,000. And so we decided that was a great opportunity to do heating and air conditioning work on 3 buildings. Mary Daly, West Side, and the high school. The high school was replacing those 1971 era chillers and trying to improve the HVAC on this campus. That was all about building environment. That was an acceptable use. You can see there on the 3rd bullet that the construction related project expenditures totaled about $6.9 million out of the $11,800,000. And so the next several slides for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 is going to be like this. I know it's hard to read, it's pretty small, but it's in your packet. You have the slides where we're sharing the activity, what we've spent through June 30th, okay, June 30th this year, and then a narrative to try to give you a sense of what those were. You can see on this first slide, long-term subs, because we certainly had a staffing problem, and so ESSER helped us with that. The other big piece there, you can see towards the bottom, summer school programs, $450,000. The next page, ethos kits. We bought kits 2 years ago. Was a big expenditure, and then the subtotal line for instructional costs, related costs, through June 30th, we've spent $2,400,000 roughly. Moving on, here's positions that were funded, are being funded out of ESSER 2. To include social workers. There's also a PD line there, and some summer school dollars. Quickly moving to the next slide, you can see things we've talked about here at a variety of meetings, foundations, high ability work, Ford NGL, which Mr. Weaver had a question about. A claim is in tonight's packet. So those items are in there. The total spending out of ESSER 2 for support services, just over 1.1 million at this point. Another slide is really small, I apologize, but several other line items. And then as we move to the final items related to ESSER 2, you can see the facilities and expenditure, or facilities and construction related. There's some library improvement, and then the Daily, West Side, and High School. And as you know, we also bonded at Daily, so there's a tremendous amount of work going on at Daily right now, if you're able to stop by there. Okay.
And ESSER 2 ends September of this year, correct?
Yes, 23. ESSER 3 then goes through 24. And you can see the federal government, as COVID worsened and the economy just almost came to a stop, they were pushing lots of dollars out. And ESSER 3 even bigger, $26,400,000. I was at the DOE budget workshop on the 28th, and one of the presentations was from the DOE group that deals with all the federal grants, the title grants and the ESSER grants. They were saying the statewide average spend at that point was 32%. Now, what that doesn't take into account is what was committed. I know my buddy at Wayne Township on the west side of Indianapolis people would throw that number at him like, gosh, you're not being responsible, you're not spending, but they had committed to lots of projects, not reflected in the expenditure at that point because they hadn't received those construction bills, hadn't paid them out, but they were committed to a lot of dollars. And so what he kept asking the DOE in a meeting we were in is you need to include some estimate for what the commitment is, not just what's been spent. Now, how is Elkhart different? You can see the next bullet.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you were talking to 32%. That's on ESSER 2.
No, we've moved on to ESSER 3.
That's fine. No, okay, but percentage-wise on ESSER 2, we spent about 41%. Correct?
Now, ESSER 2, as you'll see, you get a monthly update of where we're spending on the ESSER grants. We've got about, as of the end of June, we have about $400,000 left to spend on ESSER 2, and those funds are already committed. Okay, but we'll get to this bullet on this slide about what we can redirect if we so choose.
Okay, I misunderstood that because it said total project expenditures expected to be 6.9 million.
That was just on the construction part of
Okay.
what we were spending ESSER 2 dollars on.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good question. Okay, so what you'll see in 2 weeks in the financial package is ESSER 3 through the end of June, we spent a little over 13 million, so roughly half of the initial grant amount. The big difference with ESSER 3, so it didn't require a non-pub share and those kind of things. It did require us to spend 20% of the grant amount, so 5.3 million roughly of the 26 million on learning loss. And we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. I'll give you a little more detail. So my last bullet here, there's a lot of meat to this last bullet. So Beth and I spent hours working through updating these spending and what items did we budget in that short budget window back in 2020, as we were trying to think about how can we use all these dollars. Well, there's dollars that are going to be difficult to spend. And so we've identified $6.5 million left of ESSER 3 that could be redirected elsewhere, and I'll get to that in a later slide. But what I wanted to give you a background on was I was having communication back and forth with Frank Cheeky, who Beth works with. He is the director of federal programs for the DOE. And we were talking about what could be acceptable use of dollars and what would be a problem. I know Doug in particular sent me some articles about you can get extensions and so forth. Well, the extensions that came out were on ESSER 2 spending because that deadline is fast approaching. But it's kind of a two-step approval process. You'd have to apply to the state to see if they would approve it. And then that request has to go on to the federal authorities, and there's no guarantee that they would extend. And our DOE Indiana federal grant people are saying if you get an extension, it would be for equipment only. It would not include the labor part. So it wouldn't include all the dollars that you were committing to. And that, in my mind, is simply not the right risk to take for our district. It puts us at risk. However, as we continue to talk internally, there's a lot of roof projects that we could certainly work on. And so Tony reached out to local firms to see where you at on materials. You know, when COVID initially happened, all construction materials were a problem to get. But that is not the case with roofing materials today, and there's ample labor. So we could commit to launch roof projects, re-roofing buildings, and get that done within the window of time and be done by September, the spending bill. So I'll talk more about that right at the end, but I just wanted to share kind of the feedback we got from the state is that it's risky to take on HVAC or other projects, but roofing could be something that's acceptable because he liked the description that I sent regarding building environment. You know, if you have leaky roofs, what does that create? Mildew, maybe mold at the worst case. And so it does impact learning environment for students and staff. So anyhow, that's what we learned. Okay, next couple of slides are about learning. So this is that 20% that we were required to spend to track and spend. It really is in three areas. Instruction, and you can see the instruction piece of it is after school and summer programs. Then support services, you can see those things we talked about on previous slides, MECANs, and so forth. Various like phonics supplies and more. Then the third piece, much smaller piece, is transportation, and that relates to getting students to summer programs. So again, the total allocation that we have to spend is $5,280,000. Through the end of June, we've spent $4,429,000. So we've got almost $900,000 yet to spend. And so the learning loss line is in red on purpose because as I get into those detailed components, just like we did for ESSER 2, you will see in red what is a learning loss item. Okay.
Can we jump back real quick?
Sure.
Going back to the roofing companies, I know they made representations that there's sufficient availability of labor and material right now. As Doug does, in our contract, we put a liquidated damages clause because I know they say that now, but if they get down to it to where, oh, well, you know, we couldn't foresee this or we didn't know when we made these representations it was true, can we put a liquidated damages clause for the labor portion of it should they not be able to fulfill their contractual obligation by the date?
That's a really good question. Can you, if you get an opportunity to send me some sample language? Sure. Because you probably, yeah. It's something we can toss, but when I get to the end, what I really want to get out of this is kind of the general nod from the board that, yes, this is what we want to pursue. And so that'll come up here in just a little bit. Okay. We've been pretty good on time. Sometimes I talk too fast. Is my pace too fast or am I okay? Okay. All right. Yeah, so in ESSER 3, we get into, you can see intervention teachers, a variety of incentive pays. A big one there, the third line was back from 2020. We created a checklist if our employees, some were working remotely, some were coming in part-time and working remotely. There was just this weird combination. And we had a variety of things that folks were doing that were outside their normal tasks that we tracked, and then we paid some compensation related to that. And that was not unique to Elkhart. That was common amongst districts. Let's see. Okay, in this next slide, you see a couple of those red items that are related to the learning loss, summer programs and after-school activities, supplies for foundations and so forth. Moving on, this slide is some of the positions, and I'll have a recap of positions, both that are being paid by ESSER 3, as well as I'll have a slide that shows positions that we were not able to fill and we won't at this point. More COVID compensation. You see a few more learning loss in red. Solution tree, which is the PLC, works, mechanisms, and so forth. This is really small again, I'm sorry, but I believe you can read it in your handouts. Okay. And then as you move to facilities, library improvements, we touched to some degree or another all the libraries, media centers throughout the district. Air purifiers, for those of you that were here at the time, Tony G, you remember, brought the unit, took it apart, showed the lamps that killed germs and all the filters that are in those units. We have units throughout the district. So there's the dollar amount we spent on air purifiers. And then the HVAC that you see there is also at daily. We built some dollars into the ESSER 3 budget, not nearly as many, for construction type projects, but we've spent some dollars there. And then transfer of food service, as you would recall, their normal supply chain got disrupted during COVID. We were having to buy things off the bid list at higher prices than what would have been possible if we could have bought off the bid list. We were buying packaging to deliver meals, kids were driving by and picking up and all that. So anyway, so we put a number in the budget because we only had a couple weeks to put that budget together and have discussions about it. And so I put roughly $1.1 million. Pam provided detailed information to us. We just did this month, where we paid out of ESSER, paid food service, $219,000. Okay. That's all the detail pages. Now, funded positions. We are currently paying for, out of ESSER 3, the positions that you see on the screen. There's 13 positions. And this is one of the questions I know that the board had asked. Who are we paying for? Vice principal at the high school, after school program district coordinator, that elementary athletics and attendance position, trying to re-engage elementary students, coordinator of professional learning, and so on. So there's a number of positions that we have funded that we'll have to have discussions about where do those go when we get to the end of 24. Do we start to fade some of those as we launch into the 24-25 school year? There's certainly discussions that will be upcoming.
Can I ask a question regarding those?
Sure.
How do you foresee those, you may not have the answer, but how do you foresee those discussions going? What data will you look at to determine whether they've been impactful, what impact they've had, in order to make the informed decision on whether or not we continue with these or pare them down or eliminate?
I think this would certainly be discussions that the interim superintendent will have with the instructional team, because as you can see, those are all related to academic achievement for kids. So, but that conversation will be in conjunction with the CFO as we look at what's our funding stream look like, what's our enrollment. If our enrollment's flat, there is going to be new dollars for the 23-24 school year. If our enrollment's down, it could be a wide range, right? So I think those will be discussions we'll start in the fall, just a month or so, as we start to look at what is our enrollment shaping up to be. We've obviously seen a big shrink in the last couple of years. So lingering effects of COVID, other issues. But that's how I foresee this going. The interim superintendent might have a slightly different view, but
Just a follow-up question that you made again. It's probably too early, but obviously we start with these funded positions. We start there, but you know, if some of these had a greater impact than current programming that wasn't funded by ESSER, does that discussion or do those positions come into play as well?
yes, because those are the questions I ask superintendents. Okay, if you want to add this because you believe it'll bring better value, what are we going to eliminate? But those are
I just want to make sure
those are all part of the.
we're looking at the large picture. Okay.
Okay, so this gets to, how did we come up with 6.5 million that we think we can redirect? We had a lot of money built in for stipends. Again, you got to remember 2020, in a very short time to put a budget together to try to determine, how are you going to spend $26 million on top of the 3.3 million and 11.8 million that we'd already received? And so there's areas that we're just not going to spend. You can see the second line item, I talked about that earlier. I had 1.1 million in the budget. We actually only moved 219,000, and so that frees up $900,000. Credit recovery program is another piece. I have after school, Beth and I have after school clubs and remedial programs. That doesn't mean we're eliminating those. We're still spending those, but we had so much money allocated in the budget that we're not going to be able to use all those dollars. Elevate, the next line there, that was something that we put in the budget because we thought that would be an ongoing expense, but it is not going to be in our dean plan for 23-24. And then the last bullet there, you can see there's a variety of unfilled positions, and those have a dollar value as well. So those are positions that we haven't filled, have not been able to fill, don't project trying to fill at this point.
And this is the 6.5.
This gives you the 6.5.
Correct.
Is that music my cue to?
Thank you, manager, and
Get the hook here in
the
the second.
support team.
Okay. All right, so that brings me to my last slide. And we talked about, well, how do we redirect those dollars? This is some information that Tony and Bill Dremel put together just for discussion. I think Kelly's probably going to email me her list, right, of things. But if we chose roof projects, you can see that they've got square footage, you know, the building location, how old the roof is. And just because it's the oldest roof doesn't mean it's in the worst shape. So I think if we want to go this direction, then we'll have to sit down with the team and have more discussion about which of these are we going to pick, what makes the most sense, and how do we consume that $6 million roughly. So that's the last slide I'm going to leave you with. Do you have any questions as we wrap up in the last few minutes here?
On this last slide, how soon will the administration have notice of which projects they think they want to go after?
I think in the next month, because I just saw a communication from roofing guy. I actually know his folks. They were some. And he's saying they can hold prices and lock in resources if we let them know in the next couple of months. So we've got a little time to try to digest and make a recommendation to the interim and talk further with the board. But that's kind of in my time frame as I look at it.
Okay, so the drop dead date is September 20th.
I would say let's shoot for September, that we decide here's what we're going to do and we're going to move forward.
But
so does anybody have heartburn
This money has to be spent by September
of 24?
20th, September though, right?
This
Right,
is the
so-
money that we can use to build a new athletic facility that will go hand in hand.
No,
with our
because
community. We can't-
back to my slide where I had that communication.
Yeah,
We're not going to get an extension for we might get an extension for equipment if we were, getting an HVAC, a chiller, and it's got a 50-week lead time. But they are not going to allow, it was specifically on a slide I saw in Indianapolis a week ago, that they would not allow labor. So then you couldn't get the whole project cost. That puts us at risk. Plus, there's that two-step approval process for an extension. You'd have to get state approval and then federal approval. We need to find things, in my mind, this is Kevin, in my mind, we need to find things that can be done and completed within the window of the grant. And this is a very viable option for us, is why I'm talking about it tonight. So that's why I just kind of wanted to get a sense of, does this give anybody heartburn if we go this route, or do you like this idea?
Kevin, if we did not have this additional 6.5 million funding, how would these roofing projects,
We'd have to bond.
we'd have to bond?
Yeah, impacts property tax rate.
And do we have any idea on the continuum? You said the age isn't necessarily a contributing factor, or is it indicative of condition? Do we have any idea how many of these would need to be done within the next couple of years anyway, versus what we're being very proactive?
So we have a 20-year plan that has a scary cost number. That's a district our size should be doing projects all the time, whether it's roofs, replacing end-of-life cycle HVAC equipment, replacing gym floors who've been sanded down to the end of their life, that kind of thing. I can't speak to that specifically on this. It's a Tony and Bill kind of question, but certainly they put this list together because they felt like these sites were the most pressing in need.
These are the ones within the window of opportunity.
Yeah. And really, in his mind, this is a gift. If we're able to use these dollars and we need to consume them, this would really be a gift to the district in terms of moving ahead on some of these road projects. So,
Thank you.
With regards to, there was a credit recovery program allocated. With regards to some of this money, and after-school clubs and remedial programs, has there been any discussion with principals and staff about setting up some programming, see how it would go for this last year? I know, like in the past, as an example, Central, several years ago, when my kids were there, had laser connections after school. Is there something set up that isn't necessarily just about credit recovery, but about after-school tutoring, getting parents help, or getting kids help from staff, whomever, a system set up that we could do at our middle schools and at the high school, to kind of resurrect part of that again, to see how that would work for the next year, and help with boosting some of our outcomes of our students?
we've not had those discussions as we have awaited staffing in place. But we could certainly hold back dollars for that type of activity and discussions to take place. We do have certainly have latitude in what budget amendments that we're going to make. We'd like to get budget amendments in the next month related to this, so we know how we're going to track and spend the last of our dollars for ESSER 3. But that's a good suggestion.
And I would also suggest too, I don't know, we don't have all the results, at least publicly yet, of our outcomes on the academic side. And if there are specific things, I know with our Science of Reading program and the push from the state to improve our literacy, if there is money available that we could do some very intentional, targeted use of funds to help boost some critical areas from the academic standpoint that we know our kids need. I think that needs to be looked at as well from staff.
Thank you.
As part of the after-school programs, so some of that 450,000 can be taken away from, because we have the 6 schools that are with the full service community schools grant. So those after-school programs are funded through that program, which frees up some of this money. There are still funds left for non-title schools to do, like the high school, there are still funds left to spend for after-school programming. And then our Title I dollars increased this year, so title schools that are not in the full-service community schools grant can use title funds. So we have various sources to make sure that after-school
So like
programming.
here's the situation where they were upset that they didn't fall into that grant. 'Cause they were one of the schools that didn't fall into that
Full service
full service grant.
They are in the full-service.
Oh, they are in the full service grant? Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay, good. So then they get to benefit,
Other schools get to benefit from that.
but other schools do, yeah, okay.
So this 450,000 was budgeted, but because of other funding is not needed now. And so there's not a cut in this programming. It's funded by other sources, freeing up this $450,000 to redirect.
Correct.
And there are still budget dollars that we're leaving in essence.
Right.
Yes.
It's just blended with other sources.
And it gives the new elementary director opportunity to kind of look over everything that we're using and reallocate money. So if we see that we're wasting things in one area, we can close that down and move it where we need it to be. Yeah.
And we've got flexibility.
Thank you for putting this together. Very informative.
Yeah.
Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break before we start the board meeting. board meeting to order. If everybody wants to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kelly, do you want to read those?
Sure. The Elkhart Promise. Every student is known by name, challenged and supported by highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community will graduate career college ready and life ready.
Thank you. There will be an invitation to speak at the end of the meeting. Dora is holding up the form. If you fill out the paper in the back of the form, you'll have 3 minutes to speak at the end of the meeting. After each agenda item, you'll also have an opportunity to speak. So first on the agenda, we have the consent items. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Kelly, do you have anything?
Yes, we have from the Weaver Family Fund, care of David Weaver, we received another $25,000 towards the ETI building. And then the Deed Sports and Entertainment LLC gave us $1,215 towards the football team. And I would like to take a moment to say thank you to Dory Malik. After 29 years of working in our food service department, she has decided to retire. So thank you for serving our children.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So for new business, the board would like to announce the appointment of Mark Mile for the interim superintendent. And I would like to invite Mark up to say a few words if he would like to.
Madam President and members of the board, I will be brief, but let me just say it's an honor to stand before you this evening. On the way to the meeting this evening, I tried to count the number of times I either stood at this microphone or attended a meeting in this building. And I quite frankly lost track. There's been a lot of them. It is deja vu, I think, but I look forward to working with you. We have an outstanding staff that's dedicated, and I think that together with your help and certainly their good work, we'll continue to make progress at our promise to all of Elkhart's children. The start of the school year is only a few weeks away, and as I watched Kevin's presentation tonight, it looks like there's some work for us to do fairly quickly. So my commitment to you is that come Monday, July 17th, with your approval, I'll hit the ground running and be in touch with many recommendations and suggestions. The last thing I want to say to you is that Elkhart has many success stories for students and staff. And I look forward to celebrating those with you over the coming weeks and months. I think we'll enjoy recognizing those who truly have made a difference. So with that, thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to working with you. Call me on the 17th and you'll find me right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Doug, you're up first.
Thank you. Madam President, on July 1st, 2023, a notice of public hearing was published in the Elkhart Truth pursuant to Indiana Code 2026-5-4.3. This notice was also posted on the district's website, and set forth in that notice are the terms and conditions of a proposed contract for an interim superintendent. Now, normally, most school corporations, when an interim superintendent is appointed, don't go through the same statutory process that we have elected to do. But in order to really be transparent in terms of the process of determining compensation for the superintendent, we thought it was appropriate to go through this process of providing the opportunity for the public to comment on the terms of the proposed contract for interim superintendent. It does call for the statute does call for a public hearing to take place on this date, so the public may comment on the proposed contract. And I would request at this time that the regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be suspended so a hearing on the proposed contract can be held.
At this time, I'll suspend the agenda for the regular meeting and open the meeting for the purpose of hearing any commentary from the public on the proposed contract for interim superintendent. So is there any public comments? Everybody's saying no. Keep going. All right. Hearing no public comment, I will close the hearing and return to the agenda for the regular meeting.
Thank you. I would note that there will be a special meeting of the board to actually enter into this contract, which will take effect on July 17th, 2023, and that special meeting is set for July the 13th. So any member of the public who would like to come back and enjoy that meeting, which should take no more than 5 minutes, is certainly welcome to join us.
All right. Next agenda item.
Yes, thank you. This evening we have several compensation plan proposed changes I'd like to discuss with the board this evening. The first is a proposed revision to board policy 3410.04CS. This is the substitute compensation policy. The administration is bringing this for initial consideration, a proposed change to the compensation plan for our substitute teachers. Over the past year, there's been some confusion related to the rate paid to retired teachers. The enhanced rates that were approved by the board last year only apply to teachers who retire from Elkhart Community Schools or another Indiana school district. They are not applicable to teachers who might have retired from other states. There's been some confusion with substitute candidates who apply for these positions. And so we really want to make sure that the language is clear and understandable that, for example, a teacher who might retire from Michigan would not be eligible under the current terms of the policy for the enhanced rate. So we're bringing that to you this evening for initial consideration.
Is there any discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, then.
Thank you. We'll be bringing that back for further action next meeting. Next is our proposed revisions to board policy 3422.06S. This is the secretarial business compensation plan. The administration this evening is bringing forward for initial consideration proposed changes to the compensation plan for 3 positions in the secretarial business employee group. As you might recall, a committee comprised of administrators and employees for this group has been reviewing compensation paid to these employees in order to determine whether the wages paid by the district are competitive. During the course of this review, the committee determined that employees assigned to 3 specific positions were significantly undercompensated in relationship to the duties that these employees perform. Based upon this, we are seeking changes to the compensation for only these 3 positions at this time. We anticipate further changes may be forthcoming when we meet with employees in this group regarding wages to be paid during the calendar year 2024, later during this calendar year. Again, bringing this for initial consideration this evening.
Is there any discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? All right, next policy.
One more policy to discuss. That would be board policy 3422.12S. This is the policy governing the compensation for miscellaneous positions. The administration is bringing forward for initial consideration proposed changes to the compensation plan for a position contained in this employee group. The administration has added or is in the process of adding significant responsibilities to this position. And as a result, we're asking for an increase to the wage range for this position. Information related to the change in compensation was included in a memorandum sent to board members by Assistant Superintendent Lindsay Brander. And again, bring this to you tonight for initial consideration.
Is there any discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, next.
Thank you. Finally, from me, We have been in the process of working with the Eden Barber Academy and the Elkhart Area Career Center to expand programming offered by the Career Center. And this evening, we are seeking board approval of an agreement with the Eden Barber Academy. This approval of this agreement will allow Elkhart Area Career Center to offer through Eden Barber Academy a barbering program for students enrolled in the Career Center. Mr. Eakins is here from the Career Center to answer any questions you might have, as well as representatives from Eden Barber Academy if you have specific questions related to the program. But we're excited about this opportunity to expand opportunities for students at the Career Center. And so we're seeking your approval of the agreement this evening.
Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Is there any discussion
Yes.
from the board?
I just have two questions. Okay, so it looks like it's
Can you
one.
guys come up to the microphone, all three of you, please, and thank you.
So when we look at the books that the, students have to fill out for their requirements, it says 1 4-hour session that the kids will go, or will they go more than that?
Sure.
And how does that okay, go ahead, sorry.
Okay,
Go
so, the way.
Can you come all the way up to the
I'm sorry.
microphone? please?
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is Jose Lopez. I'm the owner of, Eden Barber Academy, and my partner.
I'm Rachel Lewis, I'm the director.
Right.
It's
Hello
located
to
in
everyone.
Easy Shopping Plaza.
Yeah.
Before you answer questions, Brandon, can you give us like a little bit of background?
Absolutely. Do I need to get to the mic?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
All right.
You knew that.
Good evening. I knew that. I just.
Me
thought I'd ask that question. I would say probably 7 or 8 years ago, the Elkhart Area Career Center began exploring barbering. It was something that we wanted to offer during the evening hours. When you look at Indiana state law, our plan was at that time was to offer it out of the cosmetology space during the evening hours. We found out we cannot utilize the same space for those two things. So at that time, it kind of went away. And then I had a visit from Michelle, probably 3-4 years ago, to kind of revisit this conversation. And I said, as far as I know, we're still at a standstill. There really isn't much we can do here. And then Jose and I connected probably over the summer, this past summer, and began those conversations. What we really want to be able to do is ensure that we're providing the opportunities for students. I think to be able to access Eden Barber Academy going through the Career Center is probably the best route for that, because they'll be able to utilize tuition dollars from their sending school. They'll also then be able to record that information through the state with us at the Career Center. So it'll help check their box for graduation. It'll help ensure that they can go through all the licensure pieces that they do there, have the support of the Career Center. So Kristen Watt, who is on our team, who led this on our behalf, will be our point person as far as in working with Jose and Michelle. We just look at it as a great opportunity for more students. We have probably anywhere from 4 to 7 students every year that enter our cosmetology program that truly want to be in a barber academy. And so for us, it helps get those students in the right place, which opens up more seats for students that truly want to be in our program. So we see it as a win-win. Not to mention, I think this is great for our community that we have this opportunity, and we want to support it the best we can.
Where will the instruction actually take place at?
Eden Barber Academy, which is on Jackson Street in the Easy Shopping Place.
So our barber students, that's what I was wondering, are they gonna actually be there as opposed to being in the village? So because I was looking at is the liability still ours, or does the liability fall under your hub?
It becomes a shared liability.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering, okay. So then, instead of doing like the 12 to 4 here, they're gonna actually do all of their hours and complete their book at the Barber Academy?
Right,
Okay.
they will
That's
do,
great.
I'm sorry, your question, your earlier question, you say how many hours are they going to do? And Kristen is the one who suggested we kind of follow the cosmetology program that you guys have here. We're gonna do 4 hours, I think, in the morning, and then 4 hours. Like a set of students will go in the morning for 4 hours, and then a different set will go in the afternoon for another 4 hours. We kind of thought that would be easier.
Then it matches their other high
Right.
school and their travel time. Okay,
Right.
that's perfect. But they actually house themselves at the barber school for the whole education. So then it actually gives us double space. So we're gaining in both areas. Okay.
Right,
Awesome.
they'll be over there. The instruction takes place at the Eden Barber Academy.
And how quickly are they actually working on humans versus mannequin heads?
I'm sorry, what's your question?
Like, how quickly do they work on actual humans versus mannequin heads?
Oh,
at the
well,
barber
they
school?
have to complete 300 hours.
Okay,
And then they're,
Then they can.
yeah, then they'll be ready to,
Okay.
to,
Yeah. No, those are we call that marketers. That's what we begin to draw.
Yeah, great question, by the way. Yeah. So it is enough, 300 hours is enough time for the students to be comfortable in the program and also for the clients to be comfortable to be in front of,
Right.
somebody holding real tools.
Do you do straight razor licensing there also? Are the students going to learn that?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
very
part of the program.
Perfect.
That is the difference, one of the biggest difference, I think, within the cosmetology
Oh, yeah.
and the barbering, that we actually train in the students in use of the straight razor. It's part of our program.
I think this is a great opportunity because the closest barber school I think is in LaPorte or Maryville, and there's lots of kids and adults that have wanted to go to barber school but just couldn't travel back and forth. So I'm so excited. I know these two personally. I've been a licensed stylist for 22 years, a licensed educator for like 8 years. I used to work with Jose, and I sent one of my former students, I don't know if you noticed, to Rochelle, and she actually mentored her, and she spoke so highly of you. So I'm excited to have this partnership with you guys. Two very good barbers, two very good people. So you couldn't be in better hands, Brandon.
Now we have one more question. So reading on the scholarship aspect of it, there's a clear definition on the students understanding that last little piece of financial and that clear ability to gain the scholarship to pay the rest of it off, correct?
Yeah, I think it's spelled real clearly
Yeah.
on the contract.
Okay,
Yes.
does the scholarship cover their $1,500 kit or they pay that out of their pocket? I'm just double checking. And
Yeah,
I read that, but it has to be very clear because people get easily confused on that. So.
yeah, so it's, we voted down, and I think I brought a copy of the contract. So we don't, make a mistake, but it clearly on the,
I just wanted to say it.
Part, yeah, it
just
says,
because sometimes it's better to have it recorded so
correct.
that way.
right,
So
correct.
sometimes I
So,
say things
like,
out loud because of that.
so we have here, like, I could just go over it so you'll know.
Oh, no, I read it, but I just,
The contract's actually in their packet. They have a
Yeah.
copy.
Oh, they have it
Yeah.
already? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
so the students, in order for students to qualify for the scholarship, they gotta maintain a 90% average.
Yeah.
Which is, which I think is great. We're not giving it away, but you gotta work for it. I think,
well,
like,
it's the same thing as cosmetology.
And I would say 80% of our cosmetology students maintain,
Yeah.
so it's very doable.
and our current students too, we have they're not in high school, and they are also working hard to maintain their notes to get that scholarship. They also qualify for that. So these are really incentive to do really good in school.
What is the job requirement, not job requirements, but the demand for barbers?
So,
For Brandon and I, it's not really super high, but
so like, in general, Elkhart's been growing at an exponential rate, So we, as a barber, I see people coming from all over the United States, right? I see people from, Florida, New York, California, and there isn't that many barbershops. There isn't that many barbershops at
And
all.
we just had 4 retire and 3 more are getting ready to retire. So there's gonna be a plethora of need that the stylists can keep. And people don't realize this, but a lot of women, short-haired styled women prefer a barber cut. Then they come to us for color.
Yeah, I go to the barber shop.
So it's huge.
what is the annual salary of a barber?
We can't talk about that. Don't talk about that.
I think, Doug, it depends on what you specialize in, where you work, what market, what city. It can vary. Like, I know some barbers who make well over 6 figures, and I know other people that just do it as a side hustle from their kitchen or their basement. So it's a variety. Well, I'm just saying that is the reality of it. That's why our kids should go to the barber school and be licensed and be official.
So like, I would say that there's a lot of need for barbers. There's a lot of people who are learning this, like YouTube, and they're cutting out of their basements, and we have a few students who've been doing that, but they're coming to our shop to get their license, because they're tired of working in the basement. They don't want to go all the way to, Fort Wayne, get a license, so they're happy that it's here, so they're actually going to school after, being in the business for more than 10 years, some of them. Yeah.
It's awesome. A lot of money hairstylists make. They do well.
I will have no questions regarding straight razors or anything her lane, but more along with memorandum of understanding. The enrollment criteria, in order for students to get enrolled, they have to have fewer than 5 excused absences per semester. So is that currently, like, so they look back at last semester, and if they had 7, so sorry, you can get it.
That's how we do our because the cosmetology program, overwhelming desire to get in that program, that's our cutoff point.
Well, and it's not just that, you
But with
have
the
to have
hours.
hours, Troy, you have to have hours. And so if you go over those absences, there's no way, and until we bring back evening classes, there's really no opportunity to make them up. So if you miss school, you can't make up those hours.
Well, this is the enrollment criteria that I'm assuming that even to get into the program the next time, you're going to look back to their last semester. If they had 5 excused absence, they would not be eligible to be enrolled.
Be enrolled initially?
Initially.
Initially, correct.
Okay.
Wait, before you answer that, what happens if during the course they get more than 5? They get kicked out?
I don't know. I don't think they get kicked out. I think then that's when we have to intervene, and we can update you on how we're going to handle that. But I think that's where Kristen Watt on our team will be our point person. She'll be there. We haven't determined if it's going to be weekly, bi-weekly, twice a month. We'll have to figure out what it's going to look like, but she'll be our point person. So as Jose and Rochelle encounter some of those issues, because we're talking about teenage students, it's going to happen. Then how do we address that?
The memorandum as presented was a little confusing for me, so maybe you can clear it up for payment of services. The tuition is $13,500, and I'm sure that's a yearly tuition. But it says
Cost of the program,
per
total program
total
cost.
program. But it says EAC will pay a total of $4,500 per student per year for 181. So it's 2 years.
2 years, like our cosmetology program, so $9,000 from the EACC over 2 years.
Okay.
Have the opportunity to earn the $3,000 scholarship for maintaining 90% or higher, and the student and family is responsible for the $1,500 kit that is necessary to be used over the 2 years and then exits with the student upon completion of the program.
If we have a student who is going to be a senior, they have the ability to come back for their second year after they graduate.
They would only have the first year paid for by the Career
Correct.
Center. They would have to handle the remaining.
And then I think one last question regarding the scholarship. So the award of the Good Student Scholarship, initially there's no financial requirements. It's everybody's eligible for the Good Student, and in order to maintain it, you have to have 90% attendance rate and a 90% grade.
Yes, exactly. It will be like having like almost like a credit initially, and then if they maintain the grade, then it keeps, we don't charge anything. But if they don't, then we'll have to charge them.
So everybody will get the
Yeah.
to begin with. Is there any opportunity for, let's say somebody does fall under the 90%? Is there an opportunity for them to get back up to 90%, or are they out of the program? Or at least for the scholarship portion of it?
So like I guess the way to maintain the integrity of the program, we have to have rules so that people can actually work hard for it and not say, okay, I just can get back to it whenever I want.
That's what I want to hear. So I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to that. That's what I want to hear. I just want to make sure that is, this is a great opportunity, and it needs to be, they need to take it serious and realize the opportunity that they have. So, well, that's your answer was perfect.
Yeah, I would just like to thank the three of you and commend you for coming together in the collaboration. I think this is an amazing example of the school corporation and private business partnering together to provide much needed services and opportunities for our kids in our communities. One question I have is about the $1,500 that's required for the purchasing of the kit. Are there funding opportunities for that kit? How do we help keep that $1,500 from being a wall from economically disenfranchised students to not be able to participate in the program?
That's a great question. So in order for us to, for the school corporation to partner with us, we reduced the amount of the actual cost of the program already. The actual cost of the program is $17,000. Or in order to work with the corporation, we came up with that number, $9,000 a year already.
Sure.
And I felt like we also wanted to help out the community and not be the amount of money they have to pay a block to it. But really, in order for us to be able to run the business, we couldn't be able to do any more than that.
Sure. If I may,
Please.
in recent legislation that was passed in House Bill 1002, CSAs accounts, so they're basically career scholarship accounts that are being set up that can be accessed sophomores, juniors, and seniors in the state of Indiana. This might be an opportunity for families to sign up for a CSA account to offset the cost of the actual kit itself. We'll have to explore that.
And also, I'm sorry, like another thing that the reason why, like if the parents are into it for that kind of money, they'll be more pressing on the student to go do good in school than, if we give it to them.
It also is, our tools are they're expensive and they're an extension of us. And when you have to invest in those tools and care for them and really look at them as part of your future, investing in that kit at that price, one is economically already sound. I mean, it's so very important that they really have that passion with those items, to believe in themselves and believe in their art.
And I can tell you that some schools don't require a kit or provide a kit. Last month, I taught for a week for Vincent University for their summer program, and we did lots of different for the week. Everything that we didn't use, all the support we gave away, and those kids were so excited because we gave away stuff that they didn't include in their kits, things that they weren't taught about. So the kit is really important, and what they get in that kit is really necessary. Some schools don't offer it or require it, and without the right tools, it's hard to master the craft or learn if you don't have the right resources.
Exactly. And then the students have to have something in it in order to be able to do good, I think. Like our regular students that are not in high school, they are paying out of their own pocket, and they are, like even the evening students, they're there, like sometimes they're falling to sleep because they've been working at night. It's the only opportunity, and they really are in there, right? They're just passionate about it. They're, not sleeping in order to be in school, so they're not wasting that opportunity. And I think, the students being into it, they're not gonna waste that opportunity because the parents will be like, hey, I just bought you a kid for $1,500.
Is there any other discussion from the board?
This might be just me, but what exactly is the difference between a barber and a stylist? Like, am I missing out on an entire new world by going to, and not to downplay stuff, by going to someone who's just a stylist as opposed to a barber? I mean, is this?
Okay, I'll put it to you this way. Right now, I'm taking over like some of the clientele for some of the barbers, and it is a total difference in designing. Total difference. And I can pull it off, but it is, we approach the head totally different. It's two totally different haircuts.
Yeah. The language is different because I used to work in the barbershop too, but I'm a licensed stylist, and people would come in and say, I want it light or dark. I'm like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. What are the numbers? Because we go by measurements. They go by different stuff. The tools are different. My nephew works in the barbershop, and we volunteer once a month to do free haircuts. And they watch me, and I watch them. They ask me questions. I ask them questions. So you get the same results, but the approach and the techniques are totally different.
I to blend, they shade the blend.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Like Lather and Fade is providing some of these scholarships. Go into Lather and Fade sometimes and you'll find out the difference.
And then they come over to me and I'll kind of give you a cut.
Yeah, it's like, I would say the best way to look at it would be their cousins, right? Mm-hmm. They're from the same family, but they're like different. So, like I say, cosmetologists, they specialize in color, cuts too. Mostly on the ladies' side, a lot of, nails and all of that stuff.
I work side by side with barbers. That I take care of their colors, they take care of my haircuts. We partner with each other.
Yeah, it's just different. It's just fairly different. Like a barber, will do, once you get a haircut, you get a hat, a neck shave and hat towel and all those things, and styling.
So I am missing out on a whole lot by not going to a barber.
The culture is completely different.
So like barbering in the last 20 years, it's become like, it used to be kind of like a forgotten kind of, but it's coming back alive strong. Every state in the United States, the barbers are what's really like popular on YouTube, and all the kids want to be barbers. And we get, calls from students all the time who are like, "Where can I start a barber school?" I said, "Wait, we're like, get you guys past the program first." So.
And what opportunity is there for public interaction? If Mike and I want to come down to Eden Academy and experience what it's like to have a barbershop experience, what opportunities are there for the public?
Oh, great. Actually, we're open for cuts from 9 a.m. to 4. And then in the evenings from 7 to 9. You can come in anytime and get a nice haircut, a good shave, and then, you tell us what you think after that.
Are the students earning money while doing? I know when I was when I went to Career Center, my senior year, I worked outside of Career Center. I was actually being paid. Are the students being paid with you guys as well?
Earning credits.
Just credits for them? Okay.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, thank you, guys.
I'm glad we can engage with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Do you have anything from the audience? Oh, wait.
We got to wait.
Oh, sorry, Tony.
That's okay.
I had crossed you out.
I kind of waved,
By
you
accident.
put it all in.
Sorry.
Oh, that's funny.
The administration seeks approval from the board for the resolution that you saw in the packet that was, I think, presented about a month and a half ago.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Now, is there anything from the audience? Brian Buckley.
Let's be quick. Good stuff. You get to us with good stuff. Hi, I'm Buck with Elkhart Athletics. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, nice to see you this evening. I'm not here to ask for our health and aquatic center or fitness center right now, and I'm not here to ask for increases for our coaches. I'm here to brag about students. I've had the opportunity to go with 3 groups in the last 6 months on trips. I went with our cheerleading crew to Florida, where they outdressed, outclassed, and outacted any of the other 400 groups that were there. Later on, I got to take kids to Indianapolis for leadership. We had 10 kids that are all rising juniors, and they were fantastic at this leadership. I mean, the difference between our kids and the way they acted and the way they looked, the way they performed, was well above so many other high schools. It just made me so proud to be there. We actually had other athletic directors calling, asking about our LSAG group. And then most recently, I got to go as a chaperone to London, Paris, and Barcelona with 40 students from Elkhart. Along the way, we ran into other groups from Philadelphia, California, Michigan. We stayed in hotels with those groups. And the way your students acted was phenomenal compared to the way students acted from other organizations that were doing the same thing. And I just think you guys need to hear that. And everybody needs to hear that, because so often we are banging our heads trying to fix the 10%, and 90% is rocking. And I would volunteer in a heartbeat again to do any of those trips. Hopefully our cheerleaders will make it again. Hopefully we'll continue to go to leadership. But just wanted to share that with you guys, because I'm usually seeing things from the athletic side, and this was from the student perspective.
Well, did you send some pictures or a story to Brenda so she can post it online?
We did from cheerleading and we did from leadership, but I was just a participant in the other one. Krista Riblett put that one together, and she was our leader and did a great job. And the Starziks went. They were awesome to travel with, but it was just amazing to see that. I mean, you don't know that until you got something to compare it to.
This would be a good thing too, for you to get with Larry Ganey, through Brenda, can have Krista get that in the newspaper too, because it's about time that the public starts reading all the fantastic things coming from our school system.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let's
So,
get that in the paper.
just wanted to share that. Go ahead.
You've done such a good job tonight. I truly expect on the next trip, a daily Bucks meanderings regarding what you've seen.
Start journaling. I did journal a little
I will
bit.
follow
I did journal.
if
I
you
won't lie to you.
journal and promote and market the great things that our
It
students
was
do.
educational overload. I mean, we received so much at that trip. It's definitely.
I'll look forward to your meanderings.
All right. I'll see what I can do. Dear Buck instead of Dear Abby.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Is there anything from the board?
Yeah, I'd like to talk, this has to do with the 90% that Buck just mentioned. Two things, back in 2008, Tonda Hines and I had went to China, Beijing and around with a group of memorial or Elkhart students. Anyhow, and those kids performed flawlessly across the board in everything that they did. Just an outstanding group of kids. And more recently here, though, another success story is you don't know how quickly your health can turn. On June 29th, my health turned in 15 minutes to put me into an emergency room. So anyhow, I'm in an emergency room and the nurse comes in and she's looking at my wife and I and says, I think I might know you. And so anyhow, it turns out she was a cheerleader with my youngest daughter in 2015. All right, senior cheerleader, and her name was Alexis Gonzalez. Beautiful young lady and stuff like that. And she explained to us, of course, there's a lot of waiting anytime you're in an emergency room, and how she got through her nursing degree. She started out at Ivy Tech, IUSB, and something else. Anyhow, but she ended up with a $20,000 college debt, that she's working on paying it off. And then this weekend, I believe that she will be in Cancun for her wedding. So, a great success story. And I am fine and healthy because I had a kidney stone. Just so you know that. It was awful. I actually have a picture if anybody wants to see it.
I want to highlight our district and some people in our district. Elkhart Community Schools is part of the Special Olympics Champions Together program, and the state had their annual celebration in June, and our own Todd Sheely was awarded the 2023 Spirit of Unified Coach of the Year. And so I want to acknowledge that, and it's such a great program. Our school has done a lot with being inclusive and bringing all of our students together and working together to achieve great things. I think because of his leadership and our past success in track and field for the unified program and being a state champion has also allowed us to broaden our reach within our own school district and give more opportunities for all kids to participate in what I like to call the unified arts programs, which are led by the YRICs in our music program and Kristen Baker in our theater program. And so I would just like to acknowledge and thank and celebrate all of our staff who are part of those programs that help bring our different student populations together and enable them to learn from each other. And as we said, we're all better together. And this is a great program, and I hope we can continue to support it and see it expand and be successful. So I wanted to highlight that for everyone.
Anything else from the board? Meeting adjourned.